I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along wherever you are. We thank you for your presence and your support for this program. Saying that, we invite you to connect with us across any of the social media platforms. We are streaming live at the uh, channel on YouTube of Black Press USA, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and on the Insight News YouTube channel. We're streaming live on Facebook and on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And whichever platform you're using to connect with us, we value that, value you. We want you to help us grow engagement and grow people connected to the program. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you subscribe. And if you subscribe at the Insight News YouTube channel, then send the link to somebody else you know, all your family, all your friends, all of your networks, and let them know that they are requested. Their presence is requested. We want to grow our subscription base. We have crossed our first 1,000 threshold. We're moving to the second 1,000. But as they say, the sky is the limit. The digisphere is the limit, meaning there's no limit. And we want to act like that. We need your help. We ask your help in helping grow the subscriber base for The Conversation with Al McFarlane. And today we're going to have a great conversation with two education, youth-oriented guests. My co-host today is my friend and colleague, W.D. Foster Graham. He's the books review editor for Insight News. W.D., welcome again, and thank you for being part of the team. How you doing, man?
Hey, Al. Feeling great. Glad to be here one more time. And I'm still celebrating.
Still celebrating what?
Well, I just turned 72.
Oh, look at you. 72. Well, you're still a young man in my book, and I appreciate you. You know, I was saying before the show began, giving you props, WD, kudos to you, because the things that you are doing when you host the show in my place, bringing on authors, it's just taking off, and people love it. And so I want to thank you, acknowledge you for building the subscriber base and the interest, because you have a way of both curating and then attacking subjects of value, of interest, that you illuminate, and that in their own right illuminate the path of our community towards being better human beings. So, brother, hats off to you. Thank you so much. Love what you're doing. And thank you for being here with us, okay?
Thank you, Al. I definitely appreciate it.
Well, today we've got, as always, what I call a robust conversation. And I want to begin with our first guest, who is an author and who lives in Duluth. I didn't know that till a few minutes ago, but Lena Bee is an award-winning author. She's an expert in early childhood education and has over a dozen awards for her debut book, which is entitled NapTime with Imani and The Fox. And as a brilliant early educator, her writing focuses on social and emotional development, addressing adverse childhood experiences through poetic and captivating language. And with the background as an early childhood teacher and center director, she crafts stories and shares resources for teachers and parents to equip children with the essential pre-skills for kindergarten readiness. Her books often include lesson plans and activities for home and classroom use. Her work has been recognized internationally and, of course, across the United States. When she's not writing, she's nurturing flowers and trees on her tree farm and sharing her love of reading with children. Lena Bee, welcome to the conversation. How you doing?
I'm good, Mr. McFarlane. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, please call me Al. And again, thank you for being here. And W, let me have you. I'll follow your lead in this interview. I always have questions, but again, this is a partnership here. Why don't you take the lead?
Lena, it was definitely a pleasure to meet you at the Book Awards ceremony of Planting People Growing Justice. And it was just a joy to see you among all the winners and stuff, because you deserve the awards that you received.
Thank you so much, Mr. Foster Graham. It was a pleasure to meet you as well.
So my first question would be this. Okay.
To hold it now, Lena, if you call me Al, you got to call him WD.
Yeah, you get to call me WD.
This is family, okay?
Great.
All right.
All right. So my first question is going to be what inspired you to write children's books, and how do you believe it contributes to the promotion of literacy and diversity in literature?
Well, I was a preschool teacher, kindergarten teacher, and I also worked in infant toddler classrooms for about 15 years. After that, I moved on to become an after school program director and a center director. I soon retired and was tasked with homeschooling my grandchild. She was the oldest, and I spent so much time reading thousands of books to children. And every time I held a book, I said to myself, one day, this is going to be a book written by me, and it's going to represent all of the kids that are in this classroom, and they'll be able to learn from literature the way they're learning from it now, except I will be the protagonist to do that. And so in watching my granddaughter learn and sharing books with her, I began to write lesson plans. And the joy that came from her and what we did together with the books just encouraged me to do it more and to include lesson plans.
Thank you. Definitely appreciate that. Now, which will segue into my next question. Now, in what ways does your book reflect the importance of representation in storytelling? And what was your approach to portraying diverse characters, Lena?
Well, in reading those hundreds of books to children, I noticed that there was a lack of diversity, specifically young Black girls in literature. And so I was motivated to first have a female character that wasn't just a princess. My granddaughter was more of a scientific thinker. And while I would read books to her about princesses, she really wanted to be challenged to do more. She wanted to do experiments. She wanted to explore her environment. She wanted to see herself in books where children were doing scientific experiments. And that was few and far between. And so in my efforts to write using a young Black girl, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just stuck in the princess mode. I really wanted to branch out and show that critical thinking skills and science and math and STEM activities were exciting for us as well.
And that definitely shows up when I was reading it, particularly when it came to the different things she would visualize.
Yes.
Well, because Imani just couldn't get to sleep. Tell us about that. Because I was sharing earlier about what it's like to be maybe 3, 4, 5 years old and having that nap time.
Yes, yes. Well, as a center director, I noticed that a lot of times there were children who just could not self-soothe themselves enough to go down for nap time in the middle of the day, especially if they were in a print-rich, colorful, exciting environment. All they wanted to do was to continue to be in that environment. And unfortunately, those kids who didn't go down for rest time kind of got a bad rep. And so, because I want my books to concentrate on social emotional development and not just the cognitive skills that we think children need to go to kindergarten, because they need to be socially and emotionally prepared as well. I decided to start with what I saw as the number one problem and to help children navigate that so that they wouldn't have a bad rap. I wanted to make sure that the child who wasn't sleeping during nap time had a book that they can go through and kind of give their brain the exercise to help them to settle down a bit and to know that they're not alone in the insomnia that they experience in the middle of the school day.
Yeah, no, that's right. I can remember my own self back in the day. Of course, I didn't always have that problem, but and now you have a lesson plan near the end of the book. Can you kind of elaborate on that lesson plan?
So the lesson plan that's in the back of NapTime is geared towards the teacher when they are creating their lesson plan. It's kind of a list of the skills that you want to teach and use in this book. And so in order to get children to self-soothe, that is an inner kind of skill. that they have to master within themselves. It's not something exactly that can be taught. And so I wanted to provide an example of how to do that. And so in reading that book to the child, they can work it out in their own parameters. In my next book called My Rainbow Days, that book is different in that it teaches 7 days of the week, the 7 colors of the rainbow, and 7 big feelings that we have to deal with. So in the back of that lesson plan is a list of activities in all of the disciplines, such as cognitive learning, social emotional learning, even large motor skills. And it's a way to bring all of those things together just using that one book. Teachers can do a webbing and plan just about anything in the classroom.
Oh, now you know I'm going to have to get a copy of that book, Lena.
Absolutely.
You know I'm going to have to get a copy. So reactions from readers and teachers who have read your book, you know.
Yes. So I was fortunate to read to a group of children at prospective charter schools in Chicago. And that was an amazing experience. The teachers really enjoyed being able to see how to use a book in lesson plans. But there was a time when I went to the Alliance for Progress Charter School in Philadelphia, and I read to a group of kindergartners. And I was reading the book and soliciting a response from the children and saying, have you ever done this activity? And one of the little girls stopped me and she said, wait, Lena Bee.
Hey, what?
That little girl looks exactly like me. It filled me because that was my purpose and intent. And I think that the fact that she saw herself in that book was just amazing. And I touched my nose because that's exactly what I wanted to receive from the book. And also some of the responses from the awards that I've won, I was really, really surprised. I won the Wizard Award, and that is an organization based in London. And even in London and Paris, they could take a book like this that probably they would have never thought, but still appreciate the story and what it does for children and the social and emotional learning that can go on with it. So I'm very proud.
Thank you, and that is most appreciated. Now, given that we talk about looking for images and books that look like us, tell us something about your history.
My personal history?
Yes.
Well, I am a twin of a 14-year-old mom, and my mom had 3 children by the age of 15. So we come from very humble beginnings, but we come from a home that understands that education is the key. And so although my mom was young, she stressed education in every aspect of our lives. And so my mom, who didn't graduate from high school, got her GED, but still went on to get her master's in education. And even though she tried to move away from teaching, the teaching field just kept pulling her back. And so I get it honestly. There are several teachers in my family, my grandmother, my aunt. I have 4 aunts on my grandfather's side of the family, and they all say, we don't want to be teachers, but God says, you know what, I have a path for you, and teaching you will do. And so I get it naturally, and I'm just so thrilled to be able to share it.
That is amazing. Al?
Well, great interview. Thank you for being here. How did your family come to Duluth? What's the Duluth story? What's the migration of your family?
My husband is in the military. And so we have moved around a lot. We've lived in Hawaii. We lived in Philadelphia. We circled around Chicago.
Navy or Air Force?
He is Army.
Army, okay.
Yes, he's Army. He's reserve right now. He's 20 years plus.
Tell him thanks for the service to our country.
Thank you. He enjoys it, and I enjoy serving with him. He's deployed now, so this is a great distraction for me during deployment. Deployments are hard.
Oh, sure. Sure. And so where were you born? I think, did we lose you, Lena? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. What's your personal memory? Were you born in Duluth? How did?
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you ask the question again, Al?
I was still asking about your lineage. You came to Duluth with your husband, but where are you born? Where are you from?
I was born in Chicago. Actually, my grandparents were part of the great.
Okay, we do have a little bandwidth issue here because I don't hear you right now. Do you hear her, WD?
I can't hear her either.
Okay, I think we've got a little bandwidth challenge
Slight
there.
technical difficulty.
Yeah, that's good. But it'll probably come back in a second when she refreshes her screen. But this is a wonderful story. There you are. Wonderful
There.
story. And I love all you're doing. I hope you're going to read some of your book. Do you have one of the books that you can read? Would you please? Yeah.
Indeed.
And listen, I'm going to be a kindergartner. I'm going to be 5 years old. Instant transformation. I'm going to drop.
Great.
I'm dropping 73 years, WD. So I'm going back.
Zing.
So the title of the book is NapTime with Imani and The Fox. And that Imani is my granddaughter. And actually, the fox is me. And the fox kind of helps Imani navigate her world. She's in the background, and you'll always see her on every page. But she is guiding her and keeping her safe. So it's nap time now, and I can't sleep. What can I do instead? I wiggle my toes and play with my feet and count the braids on my head. It's nap time now, and I can't sleep. What do I do instead? I think about cows and count some sheep on a farm or an old homestead. It's nap time now, and I can't sleep. What do I do instead? I'll blow bubbles like sharks in the open ocean deep, and a surfboard is my bed. It's nap time now, and I can't sleep. What do I do instead? I feel feathers, umbrellas, drums, and beads. It's a Mardi Gras parade I led. And then I'll skip quickly to the end. Because it's nap time now and I can't sleep. What do I do instead? I watch my friends who slumber and sleep. I respect nap time instead. And so it's a wonderful way to not only teach children to self-soothe, but to teach them how to respect others in their space. And so I think that's a valuable social emotional lesson, because that's difficult at that age, where we're, especially when we're new to a school, where we're not understanding how to respect the feelings and space of others. And so nap time is an opportune time to teach children to respect space and time and others' needs.
Well, Lena Bee, in your notes to us, you listed your inspirational quote. You said, "Be awesome, be amazing, be you." That's a great quote. Tell us about that.
So I use the name Bee because it stands for Brilliant Early Educator. And when I go out to do professional development in preschools or even to read to children, I make sure that I acknowledge all of the brilliant early educators in the room. And I have us all buzz like bees so that we can remember that, like the bee, it's our job to pollinate these flowers. And the bee is so important in the world. Without bees, we wouldn't have food. And so I want teachers to know that without brilliant early educators like them, we couldn't build the foundations in children that we need to build to send them on to the world. I wish everyone knew how important the infant, toddler, preschool, and kindergarten teachers are, because they're instrumental in building the foundations of our world.
Where are we now as a culture and as a community? When I grew up, like I said, WD and I are, I guess we're baby boomers, WD.
Yes.
And our school experience was we had teachers that were also our neighbors.
Yes.
I'm sure this is your story too. I'm talking about me growing up in Kansas City. But the teachers lived around the corner, up the street. They lived, somewhere. They went to the same church. They shopped at the same grocery store, at the same barbershop. We saw them all the time. I remember, speaking of you as a military family, I just remember Mr. Cunningham, I believe, on my block was a sergeant in the National Guard, and every year when the National Guard organized for their 2-week summer training, they had trucks, and convoys rolling through the neighborhood, because it seemed like all of the Black men of that generation were military men. But there was a sense of a wholeness in that community, and
Yes.
school was at the center of it. Our teachers were at the center. Where are we now in terms of education and our duties to our children for creating an environment in which they feel and know the truth about their own brilliance and their potential?
I think we are growing. I think we have come a long way, and I think we have an even further way to go. It's specifically in early childhood, it's become more and more expensive. And while we are still fighting for teacher salaries and to come up to the norm with other like elementary school teachers, we still have a fight in us. And so my students used to think that I slept at the school. And when they left, I went to sleep and I got up before they came, but I stayed in the school because communities are so much bigger now. You might have children that come from miles and miles away that don't live in the same community as you. And it's a little harder to make those connections. And so, we have to let kids know we don't live here. We come and go. But I think that the brilliant early educators that choose the field of early childhood still don't choose it for the salary. We don't choose it for the income. We choose it for the outcome. And as with children, that outcome will always outweigh any other benefit or compensation that you can get from the field of early childhood education.
What's the proper role or relationship that we should be nurturing between our children, our families, and books? I have a collection of books, and I see WD's got a collection behind him there. Love books, love to read. Obviously, he does, and he writes, and you write books. How do we nurture and grow this sense of wealth that owning a book and owning a library means, and as something that can be bequeathed to future generations, just like currency or other assets? What do you think?
Well, I believe that what we do best, we do in habit. And so if we are intentional with children, even as early as infants and toddlers, reading to children while they're still in utero, reading to children as soon as they're born, sharing books. The first book you give a child, they'll probably rip it to shreds. But that's what we want, because then we can see how we put it back together. And then those stories, I really encourage every brilliant early educator to write a story, because in them are the real stories of the children that they care for. And so I think that exposing children to books, especially books that represent them, is the way to get them to love books. I think that's why, even having a young mom, the one thing she did was read to us. And there are states in the United States where the prerequisite for a child to enter kindergarten is that they be able to open a book and turn the page. And so something as simple as that is to encourage parents to please give your child a book before they come into our early childhood settings, because we want to make sure that we're sharing that joy. And if you notice that there are read-alongs like on the internet and YouTube, and you can actually hear the sound of the page turning. And that is the specific thing for the brain to target, like, yes, what's next? What's coming? What's going to be in the end? And as long as us brilliant early educators are modeling the joy, because when I pick up a book, I'm like, oh my gosh, kids, this book is amazing. And that's contagious. And that's what the best storytellers do. They have the energy and the excitement of the book even before they open it. And so once we're modeling that for children, they take it with them.
I grew up in a house where my dad would have me at the kitchen table every day reading the daily newspaper. And not only did I get practice every day at reading the paper and understanding what I was reading. But I got motivated because I got praise from my father. He would say, "Oh, Al, you read so well. I love the way you enunciate and love the way you pronounce it." So, you do? I'm beaming, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
Yeah.
so it's not a wonder that I'm in love with words and in love with reading, and that I'm in the newspaper business because I was encouraged and invited to develop in that train or that stream of thought. So I think it's important, and I say to the book writers to don't leave us newspaper people out. We need to get our children and families into reading, and not just reading online.
I agree.
Technology is great, the machines are great, but there's something about turning the page that you described, the tactile element of engaging with a product, a paper,
Yeah.
a book, a canvas, that is critically important. So thank you. Let me expand the conversation now and bring in another guest who is equally committed to the development of our children and of our families and our communities. Our next guest is Tamara Pinckney, and she's the National Convention co-chair of Jack and Jill of America Incorporated's 46th Biennial Convention. That convention takes place here, July 23rd through 28th. She's been a member of Jack and Jill for 13 years and has served in various leadership positions within the organization. And outside of Jack and Jill, Tamara Pinckney is the Chief Human Resources Officer at UCARE, a great organization and one that has over the years been a major supporter and sponsor of conversations with Al McFarlane and Inside News. So Tamara, thank you for all kinds of things, including your support, your company support of our business. Welcome to the conversation. How you doing? And thank you for being here, Tamara.
Hello. Thank you so much, Al, for inviting me. I'm elated to be here.
Well, we're elated to have you here, and it's always good to, let's start with Jack and Jill 101.
Yeah.
And I think this is an appropriate segue from this conversation about children reading. So tell us about Jack and Jill and its unique and powerful role in the development of young people.
Sure. So Jack and Jill of America Incorporated was founded in 1938 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania by a mother named Marion Stubb Thomas. And she had a mission not only for her children, but all children, to nurture African-American children to be future leaders. And so with that said, we've grown since 1938, and we are now considered one of the largest African-American family organizations in the nation, with 262 chapters and 70,000 families that are participating in engaging programming to help nurture our children. We have several notable individuals that have been members and children who in Jack and Jill, including Ronald H. Brown, he's former Commerce Secretary, Lynn Whitfield, actress, and Prentice Penny. Some of you might know him. He was behind Insecure. So he was a screenwriter, producer, and director of that HBO series. So we're very happy to be a part of this upcoming national convention, and very happy to be in Minneapolis next week.
And so why did you join the organization? What brought you into Jack and Jill?
Yes, I joined Jack and Jill because I wanted something more for my son. He's 17 years old now, but when I joined, he was 4 years old. Young Black boy, growing up and experiencing things, and I wanted to provide him with experiences and exposures that normal children of African descent do not have. And so his best friend's mom at the time wanted to join Jack and Jill. And I said, wouldn't it be great if the two best friends could join together? And so I joined, and I've got such a return on investment for being a part of Jack and Jill. And I've seen him grow so much. He's done debate. He's, been able to attend theater, just have those experiences and exposures, understand the political process, do community service. And he's gained a real sense of camaraderie and friendship with other teens. I'd say now he's a teen that look like him. So we have teens in Minneapolis and the whole Twin Cities that might go to private schools and do not see themselves every day. And so they know that when they come through and participate in Jack and Jill programming, they're seeing each other. There's that bond that's developed. And among moms, we all have a similar need to want the best for our children and to help provide them with, the essentials that they need to become independent citizens and grow. And I would say, some of these moms have become some of my best friends throughout because we've seen each other's children grow, and it takes a village.
Indeed.
Amen.
Yeah.
Oh, question. Why
go
was
ahead.
Minneapolis chosen for this year's convention?
Well, Minneapolis, we're in the Midwestern region of Jack and Jill. And so Minneapolis normally is not thought about. We always think of Chicago and the bigger cities. And so Jack and Jill decided intentionally to highlight Minneapolis because there's a lot of things to do here. I mean, not only is it the birthplace of Prince, but we also have been the center point of a lot of things that have happened, with George Floyd. And so it was time, long overdue, for Minneapolis to host this convention so that we can showcase who we are and what we do. And I'm very proud that they selected where I'm currently living, and that, the two chapters that are here, the Minneapolis chapter, which is the oldest chapter in Minnesota, and the City of Lakes chapter, which is the chapter I belong to, we can host, along with the Midwestern region, all the great things that we're doing. And it's important to note, one thing I didn't say is that Jack and Jill of America Incorporated is made up of 7 regions. So the Midwestern region is just one of those regions, and we have regional directors for each one that report up to our national president, Cornisha McGill-Brown. So for the Midwestern region, our regional director is Lindsay, Regional Director Lindsay, or Deidre Lindsay, as I call her.
Any special events? What goes on during the convention here in Minneapolis?
Well, we conduct the business of Jack and Jill. So when I say the business, that means, we look at our current bylaws, we make revisions. We also vote on new officers, new national officers. And again, as I mentioned, our national president is currently Cornisha McGill-Brown. We will also do community service. So there's a lot that will be taking place over this time frame. We're going to be having a legislative luncheon. We're actually having a George Floyd memorial that will take place this week, where we have Attorney Ben Crump, who will be speaking, our guest speaker. We will be having different community service activities that will span across the week. We'll be having our opening, one of our events at Paisley Park, because everybody wants to go see where Prince,
Yeah.
but we will be having entertainers here. We'll have a concert by Belle Biv DeVoe. But really, the main reason for our national convention is to conduct the business, to go through and make sure that we're staying focused on programming and that our children are top priority in everything that we do.
So does the convention involve pretty much just the moms and dads, or is it parents and kids?
It is everyone. But this is mostly a mother's, this is time for the mother members to come together and get the work done. But there'll be over, I'd say, 1,800 individuals in attendance. So that includes mother members, associates, which are past mother members who've graduated out. And what that means is their children are now in college or beyond. We have some fathers coming, children, teens are coming. We're providing childcare for them. And we also have a special alumni track this year. So we're bringing back those recent graduates out of Jack and Jill to come back, have reunions, socialize, network, and really, continue to give back to the organization.
And which events are open to the public?
We have one particular event that I would love to extend to everyone in the public on Tuesday, July 23rd, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. We will be hosting our health fair, and the theme is Your Health, Your Legacy. The health fair will be at the Minneapolis Convention Center. And so we will have 20 vendors in attendance. We ask that everyone come out, learn more about their health and wellness. I want to extend a special thank you to the Jack and Jill of America Foundation, Baxter, Editas, American Cancer Society, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and the Fulcrum Tech Therapeutics for making this dream a reality for us. We will also be doing a blood drive. So if anyone is interested in donating, I ask that they visit the Red Cross Blood, redcrossblood.org, and enter the code JJ Convention, and they'll be able to schedule an appointment, come out and attend, and learn more about these wonderful organizations supporting health and wellness, as well as more about Jack and Jill.
Let me go back to the name of the organization, Jack and Jill. Tell us about that name, what it implies. And as you mentioned that you got involved because you wanted to create a space for your son. The focus is on boys, is that correct?
Yes. It's
talk about that. And
on, all children of African descent. And Jack and Jill, it's kind of funny. The logo, you think about, the old saying of Jack and Jill went up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to help create those leaders. And yeah, sometimes they might fall down, but we are here as mother members to lift them up and help them be their best and do their best. This is a organization that we don't get paid for. And I know Lena Bee actually talked about, there's no compensation in this. It's purely for the love of the children. It's not for the fanfare, the photo ops, anything of that nature. What we want is for our future to thrive. And so, when I think about Jack and Jill and the experiences and exposures that my child has had, it really warms my heart, because I know that this is something a lot of children do not experience, but it's something that is unique to us as Americans. And what we put into it is what we get out of it.
One of the things you do, used to do it here, maybe you still do, is a botillion, right? Is that still an activity that Jack and Jill is doing?
Yes, the Minneapolis chapter of Jack and Jill hosts what's called the Rites of Passage for our young men. And it is a program in which they learn leadership skills. They have a mentor. They learn about themselves and the importance of the power that they possess. They also do a capstone project. And then they have that grand, I guess we'll call it rites of passage ceremony, where they introduce themselves. And it's based on the African traditions of, taking young men and young boys, and they become men. My son participated in it last year, and he had a wonderful time. He actually was named the outstanding leader during his time in Jack and Jill and Rites of Passage. So I'm hoping that this is something that continues. It's open to everyone.
Well, I have a question for you, Tamara, and I think since we touched on it with Lena, tell us about the role literacy plays in Jack and Jill, because one of the things that we are definitely about is not only books and words, but literacy all around.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Literacy is important. We actually have education as one of our key themes that we focus on. And I was thinking about it. So I was listening to Lena speak. I was like, oh, we have bedtime stories. I would love to have you participate and read to our young ones. Jack and Jill spans the ages starting, the youngest is 2, all the way to when they graduate from high school, which could be 18, 19 years old. And they're focused, our program is focused on age groups. So you have the youngest of youngs kind of doing like similar play dates, but things that'll help, their mind develop and grow. And then they grow, and you might see them doing something at General Mills, learning about Black scientists or how Cheerios are created. Or you might see them doing some canoeing, because that's something that normally we don't do, but it's recreational. So literacy, we actually do a lot of, we do a lot of, I think recently, and especially in my chapter, we did a book collection. And that's something we carry on. So each and every conference, convention, regional event that happens, there's some component of community service, and there's some component of education that we are highlighting. So literacy is, we have what's called a JMB module, which includes leadership and financial. So we're learning about the importance of understanding financial management, financial literacy, leadership. It might be a STEM activity focused on being able to learn about how future careers can fit into things that they love, such as gaming. So we try to create programs that are meaningful for different age groups. And literacy, we've actually pulled some of our teens to read to our youngest ones to provide that mentoring and paying it forward. So I was very happy that, to have Lena be a part of this discussion, because as I was listening to you, I was like, there's a connection there. And I'm so happy that I met you. And I'm hoping that we can collaborate more.
Absolutely. I would really love it. Yes, absolutely.
A question I had also about says Lena and Tamara. Okay. I just like to get kind of your viewpoints on how not only as we engage the children, but also the different ways that, in your opinion, we can engage more of the families to get them interactively involved in the process. Because sometimes you get families where, I just send my kids to school and that's it. But the parents aren't engaged. What are ways that we can engage the parents more?
Mm-hmm.
So as a part of my company, Books by the Bee, when I go out to do professional development for teachers, I always take a gift, and that gift is a book bag. And in this clear book bag is a book, a doll, or a lovey. There's a sleep mask in the NapTime book, and there's a couple of other fun things. But what's most importantly in there is a journal. And that journal provides a space up top for the child to draw a picture. And then there's lines at the bottom for the parent to do story dictation. And the concept is to bridge home and school. Mm-hmm. And so the purpose of the book bag is that the teacher will send the book bag home with the child. The parent will read to the child, and then the child will draw a picture of what sharing that book with the parent is like. And then the parent will ask 2 or 3 questions about not how was your day at school, but tell me one thing that made you really happy today. Tell me one thing that you overcame today. Tell me what was hard for you and what you did about it. And then the parent will put story dictation in the journal. And when the child brings the journal back to school, not only has the parent shared school with the child, but now the child gets to share home with school. And when we bridge those relationships between home and school, we start to build a partnership between teachers and parents. And if you can start it earlier, it takes kind of that fear away from parents not feeling like comfortable enough to go and talk to parents, but also for children to know that I can bring school home and share it, whether it's an adverse childhood experience that I don't have the words to communicate, and so I used my behavior instead. And then they can have that discussion with the mom and then bring that back. And maybe that will offer a little bit of communication for a family that didn't have that communication before, but now that's being modeled. Mm-hmm. And it opens up a line of communication and conversation for all of the adults involved in the child.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's precisely what Jack and Jill does as well. As a group, yes. As an organization, they create that space, that environment, and some systems, some processes,
Yes. And I will say, as a mother's organization, each mother member owns the experience where they are part of the programming. So they plan the programming as a group, and then mothers actually are the hosts of the programs that are established. So we might have programs that expand throughout the year, And so based on how many children we have and based on the mothers, they will then own one of those months and put it together, be present, provide, make sure that they're providing the holistic experience. And as the children become teens, so that becomes a different scenario, because the teens then start to own their own experience, where they are then taking what they've learned and grown through with their mother members. The mothers become advisors. So the teens plan the programming, the mothers advise, kind of telling them, hey, you're on track. This is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Or wait a second, let's pull it in a little bit. But, they have a wonderful time. And as a teens, they also have a teen leadership conference that they participate in at the very end of the year, where they celebrate their successes with mothers and fathers chaperoning them and making sure that they are having some safe and healthy activities. But it's, really, Jack and Jill is a way for the parents to engage. Even though it's a mother's organization, we also have Father's Auxiliary that plays a role in helping to watch over their children and provide that support that's needed.
Indeed, indeed. So Tamara, I see there's a quote that you have, says, what you are is God's gift to you. What you become is your gift to God. But before I ask you to expound on that, let me give a little shout out to one of our regular viewers, Michelle Delicious Delights, because her late mother-in-law was part of Jack and Jill. So Michelle, shout out. And so Tamara, if you expand on that quote.
It's, I always, and I also say, what is, the quote of what is, the way that I think of life is we've been blessed. We've been blessed with life. We've been blessed with so many things. And so that is a gift from God, being alive, being born, being able to get through each day. But what we decide, the choices that we make, are our gift back. So every day I wake up, I thank God for the blessings, but I also ask for continued blessings. But I also know I play a role in that. So, as I'm asking for those blessings and watchful eyes over me, I know that if I don't actually start walking or moving and stand up, that those blessings are not going to come. So every day I think about what can I do to be better, to do better, for myself and for the ones that I care about. So that is, when I thought about the quote that you asked me about it, I said that's the quote. Each day I try to get better. We're not going to be perfect.
Right.
But as long as we're still working on our masterpiece, we're still in success mode.
I love that this great work is going on, but I also want to acknowledge that what we do, what you're doing, is built on the shoulders of people that came before you. And I wanted you both to take a minute, if you would, to talk about the personal people in your personal lives. Tell us who your mom and your dad and your grands and great-grands, and as far back as you can remember, who these people, these gifts of God were, and how they end up being present in your life. I also believe that those who are the ancestors are with us all the time. They never leave us. And so let me get a sense of your sense of lineage that has flowed into you. And it's important for me to say this because I know that through you, through us each individually, the future shows up, right? We are at the center. We're the fulcrum, right, of all of existence. So it's important to acknowledge the past and the lineage and how all of this evolves into our role as authors of futures. And our job is to be writing futures in which our people win. And our people winning, to me, means that humanity wins.
Right.
It's not that somebody has to lose. It's about how do we create situations in which human beings become the best human beings that they can be, that they're meant to be. But Tamara, talk about your family and the people whose shoulders you stand on.
Well,
And name them if you want to. You can give them, shout them out,
well, my background, I do have a Creole background, so it goes all the way to New Orleans, like New Orleans. And so, Sarah Taylor, I think that's as far back as I can track. She was an individual that believed highly in education and went to Howard University and, just really wanted to instill in her family members the importance of the fact that education was denied. So it's important that we learn as much as we can so that we can understand. But, more recently, I also have a lot of matriarchs. I have my great grandmother, Christine Hutton. I'm also from Kansas City. So I heard you say that. My grandmother, her name was Joyce Ann Harper. And she was an activist working for the Urban League. She also was one of the people that helped to start UMA. So she was one of the people that kind of backed it, as it was growing and Blacks in Media became something that, the reason why, minorities in media exist today is because, of people that supported that catalyst. And she was one of those. She had her big afro. She did her speeches, and she also tried to find women in women roles that were non-traditional.
Yes.
And my mother, Christina Harper, she actually lives with me now, so I don't know if she's watching, but she was always the quiet one, quiet and calm, and everyone kind of knows and likes her. But my grandmother taught me the go get 'em attitude. My mother taught me the give grace.
Yes.
So I stand on, their shoulders and the shoulders of others that I've seen, that have done such great work, and I see them. We don't all the time, they don't have to be related to us
That's right.
to see them.
That's right.
And so the hope is that, as our futures grow, they see us and they replicate us and they carry it on generations after us, because it's important. We've come too far not to want this legacy to continue. And I think I will also plug in, as I said that, it reminded me, I'm supposed to say the theme of the convention. So the theme of our convention is, let me look at it. I haven't been looking at my notes. It's celebrating a masterpiece of life, love, leadership, and legacy.
I think we've got a flyer saying the same. Once you put the flyer up, Cooper, you got it. There we go.
So it was very intentional for our national president to have that theme.
Okay, and then here's the promotion on the community health fair as well. I was going to ask you, you mentioned Kansas City. I'm a native of Kansas City. Maybe you know that. I'm not sure. What neighborhoods did you grow up in? Huh?
I heard you say it today.
Yeah. What neighborhoods did you grow up in?
So I was born near the plaza at St. Luke's Hospital. I went to school on the Kansas side at Sumner Academy, but my family lived off the 18th and Vine.
That's my own neighborhood. Okay.
Yeah. So you might know some of my family members. So if you know any Harpers, Ellingtons, Huttons, we're all one and the same.
And well, I think we're probably all from the same neighborhood, and that's great.
Yeah.
And
we might be relatives.
You said Huggins, right? You said Huggins?
What did you say?
You said Huggins?
Yes.
There's Huggins in my family, so I think you never know. You never know.
No, never know.
Lena, how about you? What's your whose shoulders are you standing on?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I come from a family of teachers. My mother's a teacher. My grandmother's a teacher. I have 4 or 5 aunts who are teachers. But also, my maternal grandfather can trace his roots back to the ship that they got off of. And his mother was a kindergarten teacher. So my great-great-grandmother was a kindergarten teacher, and my grandfather would write, and he wrote poems, good poems, exciting poems, bad poems, anything that was a poem in his head. And he was the kind of man where if he saw you and appreciated meeting you, he gave you the gift of a poem.
Wow.
My grandfather was born in the 20s. Yet, out of all of the hundreds and maybe thousands of poems that he wrote, he wasn't published until he was in his 70s. And that speaks to a time when we weren't published, when our work wasn't valued, when it was difficult to get published. And so now the ease that I published my book, it was not easy. It was a chore. Finding the right people, finding the right illustrator to bring out the representation I wanted to bring wasn't easy. And so I know that every time I get an award for my book, I thank my grandfather, because it is his broad shoulders that I stand on, knowing that he couldn't get published. And now today, not only can I pay a vanity publisher or publish myself, but for him, those opportunities weren't extended. And so for my great-grandchildren to be able to read not only my grandfather's poems, but books that I plan to publish, and I plan to publish many, just brings an excitement and a joy that I hope that he's watching and enjoying with me.
I'm sure that he is. Tamara, what's the future hold? Let me ask you just to suspend whatever and put your mind and your spirit into 100 years from now. What do you see?
So not only will I have the Imani and The Fox series, but I have 7 grandchildren, and I intend to use each one of my grandchildren in a series. So the next series I have is a girl named Ladybug. And Ladybug is a story about a girl who gets a bonus mom. And in having a bonus mom, she gets all these feelings. And as a young child, she really doesn't know how to navigate those feelings. And so she's going to teach us how to take these big feelings and work in the world with them. And so in 100 years, my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be reading my books to their children.
Yes.
Learning how to navigate the world, whatever the world is going to be like then, based on what we know now. Because I believe a foundation is a foundation. Yeah.
Same question.
Same question.
Now, Jack and Jill has.
Yeah, Jack and Jill.
Go
I see Jack and Jill celebrating many more milestones. I want us to thrive, and I want us to be able. We're doing our history book, and so I want us to be able to look back at the history book and be able to have multiple history books and multiple young children who we've instilled in being, in roles that far surpass us. Yes. So you never know. The next president of the United States could be a Jack and Jill child right now. They have aspirations, and they know that, they can do anything if they put their mind to it.
Amen.
WD, final thoughts?
Well, I would just sum up a quick question, if you can do it very quickly, between Lena Bee and Tamara. What advice would you give to your 13-year-old self from where you are now?
Wow, great question.
I would tell her to push down that anxiety and that fear and go for it. Because when you're that age, going on that rite of passage that Jack and Jill encourages, when students don't have that, there's a certain amount of fear and anxiety that goes into stepping out into the world. And that's a very difficult time in brain development. And so I would tell her, go for it. Because I waited until now. I'm going to be 56 on the 22nd to start to publish my books. I should have been published years ago. But it was that fear and anxiety of stepping out into the world, that I'm not good enough, that who's going to read it, who's going to love it. And now, 14 awards later, if I knew then what I know now.
Tamara, 30 seconds for you.
I say the same thing as Lena, telling my 13-year-old self, like, you've got this. You are worthy. Don't give up. Things get better.
Listen, thank you so much, Tamara Pinckney. Thank you, Lena Bee. Brother WD, as always, thank you. And we'll see you, our listeners and viewers, next time. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Take care. Thank you. Bye.